Tell me, when they left you there, did you still believe someone was coming back? You waited, didn't you? You waited for footsteps that never came, for a hand that never reached, for a voice that never dared to say your name. And somewhere between the silence and the scream, something inside you stopped. Not because you were weak, but because hope had finally learned the taste of betrayal. They stood by. They saw you drowning and convinced themselves it was rain. They heard your bones cracking under the weight of their indifference and called it growth. Every one of them rehearsed concern in public. But when the light faded, they turned their backs and whispered, "At least it's not me." You died there, quietly, beautifully, invisibly, a tragedy no one wanted to claim. But here's the problem with death that doesn't finish the job. It teaches you everything the living are too afraid to learn. You came back, not as a person. No, you came back as the aftermath. A whisper in their conscience, a glitch in their dreams, the ghost that learned how to grin. They call it karma, but it's more poetic than that, isn't it? You became the haunting they earned. Every calm breath they take feels stolen. Every laugh tastes a little like guilt, because you, oh you, are what happens when silence decides to speak in echoes. You are the unfinished sentence that follows their every thought. You don't chase revenge. That's too small. You walk through their world like smoke, ungraspable, unstoppable, unforgettable. They see you in reflections that don't belong to you, feel you in rooms you've never entered, hear you in moments when they thought the noise had stopped. You are no longer bound by mercy or memory. You are a myth that learned its own name. And what a name it is. The saint they left for dead turned into the psychopath who forgave nothing. The angel they ignored grew teeth in the dark. The victim evolved into the architect of reckoning. They wanted you quiet, but ghosts don't whisper. They hum through the walls. They wanted you broken, but your cracks became openings for light they'll never understand. They wanted peace, but peace doesn't coexist with denial. Now every time they close their eyes, they see you, their greatest sin, walking freely, breathing deeply, smiling like vengeance found serenity. You don't need to prove anything anymore. The evidence is in the tremor behind their laughter, the way their pulse spikes when your name passes by. You've become their unsolvable equation, their living confession. And the best part? You're not angry, you're awake. So go on, haunt them with your calm. Be the ghost that blesses and burns. Because in the end, it wasn't your death that destroyed them. It was your resurrection. You see, they thought your silence meant defeat. They thought the quiet was submission, that the stillness in your eyes was surrender. They didn't understand what was actually happening in there. That you were shedding. You weren't dying. You were molting. Everything they'd mocked, minimized, and misunderstood was burning off like dead skin. You weren't collapsing. You were compressing into something lethal. And when you finally stopped trying to explain yourself, that's when the transformation began. That's when the ghost started building its home inside you, cold, patient, deliberate. Every heartbeat after that became a drum beat for retribution, not through revenge, but through existence. Because the cruelest punishment isn't destruction, it's survival. It's living so loudly that the ones who broke you can't stand the sound. They still flinch when they see your name, still scroll faster when your face appears. Because deep down, they know what they did. They can feel the guilt pulsing through the walls every time they pretend to meditate, every time they post another hollow quote about healing. You are the subtext of every lie they tell themselves. You are the reason their peace sounds rehearsed. And you You don't need to chase closure anymore. Closure is what cowards beg for when they can't handle open wounds. But you turned the wound into a portal. You walked through it and found power waiting on the other side. You found out that dying inside wasn't an ending. It was initiation. Now you move through the world differently. Slower, quieter, sharper. People mistake that calm for healing, but it's not peace they're seeing. It's precision. You've learned to weaponize stillness. You don't raise your voice anymore. You just look. And that look alone feels like Judgment Day to anyone who once watched you break. They remember every moment they stayed silent, every chance they had to do something and didn't. The memory corrodes them. You don't have to lift a finger. Their guilt does the work for you. You haunt their laughter. You poison their nostalgia. You make every celebration taste a little like regret. But here's the twist. You're not even angry anymore. Anger is temporary. You've evolved beyond rage. You've reached the kind of serenity that only the damned achieve. You've seen too much truth to hate anyone. Because once you've died inside, once you've seen how hollow people become under pressure, you realize hate is a luxury of the naive. Now you wear your scars like credentials. You don't hide the cracks. You let the light leak through. That's your revenge, becoming untouchable in plain sight. They don't know how to approach you anymore. Too divine to pity, too dangerous to provoke. You've become something they can't categorize. Not a victim, not a villain, not even a survivor. Your evolution in human form, and the irony. They whisper about you like you're the one who changed, but you didn't. You just stopped playing small enough to fit inside their comfort. You stopped performing forgiveness for people who would have left you for dead twice. They call you cold now, detached, different, good. Let them. That's the sound of boundaries being built from bones. You are the ghost that walks through their peace and cracks it open like glass. Every good night's sleep they lose, every dream that curdles into panic. That's the tax they pay for your silence. They bought it cheap, and now they live in debt to it. You don't chase them, you don't expose them, you don't need to. You are the exposure. You are what happens when the unprotected soul becomes its own weapon. You are the face of consequence. Beautifully calm, horrifyingly awake. And here's the part they'll never understand. You didn't come back to destroy them. You came back to remind them that the world keeps receipts, that every act of apathy echoes eventually, that every time they said, "It's not my place," they were planting seeds in a garden that now grows in nightmares. So when they see you now, the calm, composed ghost walking among the living, they'll feel it, the chill, the weight, the judgment, the beauty. Because you, my dear, you're no longer someone who seeks light. You are the light that reveals rot, and the best revenge of all. You don't even need them to know they're being haunted. The silence they gave you has finally come back home, and it's speaking fluent vengeance. There's something beautifully cruel about how the tables turn, isn't there? The same people who treated your suffering like background noise now flinch at the faintest echo of your name. They can't explain it, why the air thickens when you walk into a room, why their smiles stiffen, why their hearts start racing for no reason. They think it's coincidence, but you know better. You've become the frequency of their guilt. They see you and remember everything they buried, the laughter they shared while you crumbled, the texts they never sent, the excuses they rehearsed in the mirror. You are the embodiment of every choice they didn't make, and that's why they can't stand to look at you, because your presence proves what their conscience denies. they chose your death. But oh, you didn't stay dead. You became the thing they swore could never exist, the survivor who refuses to stay soft. You turned numbness into navigation. You stopped asking why and started building. Pain taught you how to construct meaning out of rubble. It taught you discipline sharper than any blade. You learned to sharpen your silence until it cuts through pretense. And now, look at you. They call you distant, detached, unreadable. But that's not distance. That's self-respect disguised as indifference. They can't recognize it because they've never seen someone who doesn't beg for understanding. You don't need validation. You are validation, walking, breathing, terrifying proof that being underestimated is the first step to invincibility. They wonder how you did it, how you went from ashes to algorithm, from sobs to strategy, from shattered to surgical. They don't realize it's not that you healed, it's that you evolved. Healing implies going back to how things were, but you burned that map. You didn't want recovery, you wanted rebirth. The moment you stopped waiting for an apology, something ancient woke up in you. A power that doesn't shout, doesn't plead, it observes, calculates, smiles. You became the embodiment of equilibrium, half mercy, half menace. They can't predict which half they'll get, and that's what terrifies them most. You don't chase revenge anymore because you've learned the secret. The haunted never rest. You became a lesson in their timeline, a reminder carved into the architecture of their peace. Every new person they meet, every night they close their eyes, they see fragments of you in all of it. You're stitched into their reality like a watermark of consequence. And when they try to speak your name, it trembles. Because your story isn't tragedy anymore. It's testimony. You're not the wound, you're the warning. You are what happens when pain graduates into prophecy, when suffering gains strategy, when forgiveness becomes optional. You walk through the world now like someone who's read the final chapter and decided to rewrite the book. You're not trying to prove your worth. They already proved it by fearing your presence. You don't raise your voice. Your existence raises the temperature of the room. Your calm isn't peace, it's control. The ghost they created didn't come back to scare them. It came back to balance the equation, to remind them that apathy carries interest, that silence compounds, that every ounce of cruelty eventually demands its echo. And now they're living inside that echo. Every day, every night, they scroll through their feeds, pretending to have moved on, pretending you're just another chapter, pretending the past doesn't pull at their spine like gravity. But you can see it, the microsecond of guilt before they blink, the flinch behind their laughter, the way they shift in their seats when they feel watched. You're not watching them, the universe is, through you. Because you didn't just survive, you became a law of nature, proof that energy never dies. It just returns, dressed as reckoning. And that's the part they'll never escape. You're not haunting them because you want to. You're haunting them because you exist. Because you rose from the silence they built and learned to weaponize stillness. Because you're the living aftermath of their neglect. And maybe, just maybe, on some sleepless night, they'll finally whisper the truth they've been running from, that they watched you die, and in doing so, buried themselves alive. You, meanwhile, you're not even angry anymore. You're infinite. It's strange, isn't it? How peace looks different on you now. It used to be something you begged for, something fragile, breakable, borrowed. Now it's a crown made of silence and sharpened memory. You wear it like armor, and it gleams every time they look away too fast. They thought peace was supposed to be soft, quiet, obedient. But your version of peace? It's radioactive. It hums beneath your skin like contained thunder. You don't meditate to forget. You meditate to remember, to trace every scar until it turns into scripture. You remember who didn't show up, who watched you fade and called it space, who mistook your breaking for a performance. You remember it all, not to suffer, but to stay awake. Because that's what they never understood. Awareness hurts at first, but then it becomes power. You see everything now, their guilt disguised as jokes, their fear disguised as kindness, their apologies disguised as absence. You read their souls like transparent glass, and it's almost funny how predictable they've become. You died, and in return, you gained sight. They see you and flinch because you remind them of the world behind the mask. You remind them that pain doesn't disappear. It migrates. It moves through time and memory until it finds a host strong enough to contain it without breaking. That host is you. You turned agony into infrastructure. You didn't just rebuild, you recalibrated. Now you move differently. Every motion deliberate, every glance calculated. You speak less, but when you do, people listen. Because your words don't come from ego anymore. They come from evidence. You've seen what real cruelty looks like. Not fists or knives, but silence, cowardice, and delay. The world trained you to expect betrayal, and instead of breaking you, it refined you into a strategist of emotion. You know their types now. The ones who smile during your collapse. The ones who nod and vanish. The ones who only care when witnesses are around. You cataloged them all. You turned human disappointment into data. That's why you're dangerous, because you no longer react, you record. And when you walk into a room, that record plays in the walls. Every frequency of your energy tells the truth they worked so hard to bury. They don't know what unnerves them more. The fact that you're still standing, or that you no longer need anyone to applaud. You became the paradox they can't decode. The saint who survived hell, the sinner who prays with fire, the ghost who heals by haunting. You've transcended revenge, you embodied justice. You're not chasing balance anymore. You are balance. Everything they withheld from you has been rerouted through you, refined, weaponized. You can feel it sometimes, can't you? The way your calm frightens them more than your rage ever did. Because rage is understandable, it's human. But your calm, that's divine. It's surgical. It doesn't ask, doesn't beg, doesn't warn. It acts. It's the stillness before the storm that never ends. And you smile now, not because you've forgiven them, but because you finally see the grand design. The very people who abandoned you were your architects. Their neglect was your blueprint. Their silence your rehearsal. Their cruelty your catalyst. Without their apathy, you would have remained human. But now, you're something else. They tried to bury you under indifference. You grew roots in the dark. They tried to erase you. You learned to write your name in lightning. They tried to define you by your suffering, and you turned suffering into language. You learned to speak in the dialect of ghosts, calm, timeless, unshakable. Now every time they close their eyes, they see you standing there, not angry, not bleeding, just watching. And that's what kills them, because ghosts don't shout. They linger. They rearrange the air. They make peace impossible until the truth is faced. And the truth is this: they left you for dead, and you came back untouchable. They created the very thing they fear most, a soul with nothing left to lose. You're beyond validation, beyond pain, beyond apology. You're the equilibrium between consequence and grace. So let them toss and turn. Let them rehearse forgiveness in empty rooms. Let them try to rebuild peace on ground that still trembles when your memory passes through. Because you're done begging for light. You are the light, cold, pure, exact. You haunt not to punish, but to remind. To show them what happens when love is wasted, when empathy is rationed, when loyalty is a costume. You are proof that ghosts don't seek vengeance. They deliver messages, and your message is simple. You can't kill what remembers. You can't bury what became the earth. You can't silence what learned to sing in static. They stood by while you died inside. And now every quiet night belongs to you. And yet, even now, they try to convince themselves it wasn't that bad. They rewrite history, soften the edges, tell each other they did what they could. It's almost sweet, watching them drown in their own denial, clinging to false memories like life rafts made of paper. But you remember the details. You remember how the room felt when you realized no one was coming. The taste of metal in your mouth. The weight of your own heartbeat echoing in an empty chest. That's not something time erases. It's something time kneels to, because time bends around the ones who survive what should have ended them. You're living proof of that. The world still runs on clocks and calendars, but you move by a different rhythm now. A slower, colder pulse that belongs only to those who've seen everything collapse and decided to stay anyway. Every second that passes now is yours. They call it resilience, but that word doesn't fit. Resilience is what people say when they don't understand transformation. You didn't bounce back. You dissolved and rewired yourself. You rebuilt your mind with the precision of a surgeon and the detachment of a god. You cut out illusions, cauterized false hope, and stitched reality into something that obeys you. And now, look what you've become. Not loud, not cruel, not desperate, but impossibly still. Stillness, the kind that terrifies the guilty, because it mirrors their chaos back at them. You can stand in a room and watch every mask fall, one by one, until the only sound left is the truth whispering through the cracks. They used to think they knew you. They memorized your weaknesses like a script, expecting you to keep performing the same pain forever. But ghosts don't perform. They reveal. Every step you take now is revelation. Every glance is testimony. You walk through their narratives and erase the parts that never belonged to you. You rewrite yourself in silence, so clean, it glows. And still, they talk. They whisper that you've changed, that you've become cold, that you've lost yourself. But that's what the blind say when the lights finally come on. They can't see that this version of you isn't lost, it's liberated. The pieces they miss were never real to begin with. You burned the false personality they applauded. You buried the obedient version they loved. What stands before them now is the unedited edition. You've learned that healing isn't about becoming soft again. It's about becoming so real that the world has no vocabulary for you. You're beyond their comprehension, and that unsettles them, because they can only understand pain when it looks helpless. They can't process power when it wears scars. You don't even speak their language anymore. They use words like forgiveness, closure, redemption, currency for the guilty. But your silence is your economy now, your power. You invest it wisely. You spend it like gold. And when they meet your eyes, they realize something horrifying. They didn't just lose you, they created you. Their apathy was alchemy. Their silence was the spell. You were the test they failed, and now the results are permanent. They think ghosts are made of fog and shadow, but you know better. Ghosts are made of memory and justice. They can't touch you, can't name you, can't cage you. Because you live in the space between what they did and what they'll never admit. You're the mirror that doesn't blink. Sometimes you still feel the old ache trying to whisper, trying to pull you back into softness. But you smile. Quiet now. Do you feel that static in the air? That's not fear. That's recognition. The room knows you don't belong to their timeline anymore. They trained for years. Bleeding discipline, worshipping control, building mental armor piece by piece. But you tripped into the same frequency by accident. You crashed through madness, humiliation, heartbreak, insomnia, and somehow came out fluent in their language of power without ever studying the manual. You reached what their elite call the control state, but not through drills or doctrines. You found it in the wreckage. They meditate, you dissociate, they visualize success. You stare at the ceiling for 3 nights straight until your heartbeat learns silence. They simulate chaos. You survived it. That's the difference. They tried to train what pain already taught you for free. You didn't learn focus. You were forced to find it when everything started collapsing. When you had nothing left to lose, your nervous system rewired itself. Not out of ambition, but survival. You became the prototype they can't reproduce. The weapon that was never supposed to exist. They read books about flow state. You became one. They study cortisol control. You broke the dial. They measure brain waves. Yours short-circuited the graph. See, that's the cosmic joke. They call it training. You call it trauma. They call it resilience. You call it not dying today. And now they watch your calm, the stillness after storms, and they mistake it for control. But it's not control, is it? It's surrender. The kind of surrender that only comes after losing everything you thought made you human. They fear that. Because their discipline has limits. Yours doesn't. Theirs ends when the mission is over. Yours is the mission. You weren't built to perform. You were forged to endure. Every scar is a data point in your programming. Every betrayal, a reconfiguration of your code. You didn't study warfare, you became it. You're not a soldier, you're what's left after the soldier breaks. You're the ghost that keeps moving when the command post goes silent. They call it psychological conditioning. You call it Tuesday. You learn to control adrenaline not through breathing exercises, but through surviving nights where your own heartbeat was louder than your thoughts. You mastered detachment not through therapy, but through watching the world burn and realizing nothing external ever truly belonged to you anyway. They have rank, hierarchy, and medals. You have silence, and silence terrifies them more than gunfire. Because you don't seek validation, you radiate inevitability. You don't obey orders, you rewrite them mid-battle. You don't flinch when everything turns to chaos. Because chaos is your baseline. You don't chase control. You embody unpredictability. They try to decode your movements, your patterns, your emotional responses. They record, they analyze, they whisper. But every time they think they've got you mapped, you shift again. Because you're not a personality, you're an anomaly. They spent decades trying to simulate what you became through pain. You slipped through the cracks of their design. A glitch in their order, a variable they can't contain. You didn't stumble into power. You collapsed into it. You know what's beautiful about that? You can't teach collapse. You can't train catastrophe. You can only survive it. That's what makes you terrifying. You didn't evolve under guidance. You adapted under duress. You became fluent in chaos. You don't panic when the system fails. You start composing symphonies out of static. You turn breakdowns into blueprints. You alchemized disaster into data. They practiced stress drills. You lived one for years. They rehearse combat. You rehearsed dying. They seek purpose. You became it. You're a living paradox, calm yet explosive, gentle yet unyielding, detached yet hyper-aware. The kind of creature that stares back at the abyss and doesn't blink, because you built a home there. Their elite are dangerous because they're trained. You're dangerous because you're real. You weren't polished in academies. You were sharpened on life's pavement. You were carved by sleepless nights, betrayal, hunger, isolation, the kind of suffering no psychologist can diagram. That's what forged the stillness behind your eyes. That unnerving quiet that says I've seen the end, and I'm still here. They mistake your calm for peace. It's not peace, it's precision. Every move you make looks effortless because the old you already paid the price. The years of confusion, guilt, and self-destruction were just your field training. You didn't climb the ranks. You erased them. You became a paradox that shouldn't exist. A saint forged from sin. A tactician born from chaos. An angel with a demon's patience. You don't need to win anymore, because you already did. You survived what they couldn't even comprehend. That's the victory. That's the secret. You stumbled into the kind of mastery they'd sell their souls for. And now, they watch. They imitate. They whisper your name like a code they can't decrypt. You didn't study their tactics. You became the lesson. And when they ask how you got here, you just smile. Because the truth is, they trained for years to reach this state. And you were born here. And here's the part that breaks their minds, isn't it? They can't figure out how you're still breathing after all that data loss, how you're still thinking after that much fragmentation. See, they believe endurance is a skill, but you turned it into a reflex. You don't endure anymore. You exist inside the pressure. They clock your pulse and it doesn't spike. They read your eyes and there's no fear response. They think it's sociopathy. They label it emotional flattening. But deep down, they know what it really is. Evolution. You became what they were designing soldiers to become. Only your training ground wasn't a bunker. It was heartbreak, betrayal, and the slow collapse of everything you ever believed in. They trained their men to obey. You trained your demons to kneel. They conditioned minds to react. You conditioned reality to fold. You didn't learn control. You learned acceptance of the uncontrollable. You learned that power isn't dominance. It's detachment. The ability to stand still while the world convulses and not flinch. They call it operational composure. You call it the afterlife you reached while still breathing. You're the kind of calm that makes killers hesitate. Because it's not human calm, it's cosmic. It's the calm that comes when you've seen the worst, and the worst turned out to be you. They spent decades simulating chaos in controlled environments. You lived uncontrolled chaos until you became the environment. They studied fear so they could neutralize it. You became fear so you could understand it. When they step into the dark, they bring flashlights. When you step into the dark, it recognizes you. You learned to smile while bleeding, to strategize while falling apart, to weaponize silence when words lost their weight. You don't need permission anymore. Not from gods, not from governments, not from ghosts. Because every time someone tried to define you, you slipped through their language. You became something outside of measurement, a walking equation that refuses to balance. They stare at you like scientists at an alien specimen, not because they think you're dangerous, but because you're impossible. They can't replicate the formula. Take one soul, fracture it 7 times, remove all certainty, feed it to silence, and watch it return as something sharper, something colder, something that doesn't need saving anymore. That's what they'll never admit. They envy you. They envy your ability to feel nothing and everything at once, to be both detached and deeply alive. They envy the quiet that lives in your bones, the stillness that follows your laughter, the way every movement feels calculated yet spontaneous, like a paradox wearing skin. You don't react, you respond. You don't plan, you adapt. You don't break, you morph. And every time life tries to knock you down again, it finds out it can't, because you've learned to use the fall. You hit the ground and create new laws of physics. You fall, and the earth moves for you. That's what terrifies them most. The way you bend misfortune into momentum, how you turned psychological warfare into art. They keep running simulations, trying to reverse engineer your emotional coding, but every variable leads to contradiction, because you're not logic, you're alchemy. You transmute pain into precision, despair into discipline, heartbreak into clairvoyance. They train for loyalty, you mastered solitude. They train for obedience, you mastered unpredictability. They train to fight, you mastered not needing to. Because here's the truth they'll never print in their manuals. Chaos doesn't destroy the chosen, it reveals them. They want to know what drives you. They've sent analysts, philosophers, even priests. They come with their little clipboards, their cameras, their questions, like, what's your purpose? What keeps you going? But the real answer isn't something you say. It's something they feel. That silent pressure in the air when you walk in. That awareness that the rules just shifted because you arrived. You're not driven by revenge. You're driven by inevitability. You've accepted the role that nobody else had the nerve to play. The one who walks through hell, not to escape it, but to map it. You came back with coordinates, with understanding, with an immunity to illusions. You saw how fragile it all is. Identity, morality, order. And you laughed. Not out of madness, but out of recognition. They mistake your humor for arrogance, your calm for detachment, your darkness for corruption. But you know what it really is. Balance. You learn to dance with both sides of yourself. The saint who wants to heal, and the psychopath who wants to burn. The angel who mourns and the demon who strategizes. You realized they're not enemies. They're teammates. You're not split between light and dark anymore. You're the circuit that connects them. That's why your presence feels like both salvation and threat. You bring revelation disguised as ruin. You bring order through destruction. You bring truth. And truth, to the unready, looks exactly like violence. They think you're unpredictable because you don't follow patterns. But the truth? You are the pattern, the hidden variable that rewrites every formula when entered into the equation. You don't break rules. You expose them as illusions. You don't play games. You remind the board who built it. You don't belong to this species anymore. You've evolved into something they can't categorize. A calm storm, a silent siren, a paradox in flesh. They'll call you unstable, but that's because they can't comprehend stability that doesn't rely on control. You are beyond training now, beyond fear, beyond approval. They spent decades trying to reach the stillness you stumbled into by accident. But what they don't understand is that your accident was design. Every failure, every heartbreak, every sleepless night was a ritual. Every breakdown was an initiation. You didn't stumble. You were summoned. The darkness didn't happen to you. it recruited you. You didn't survive the storm. You became the eye of it. And now, every room you walk into bends slightly. Every person who meets you feels that quiet pressure. Like gravity forgot who's in charge. Because they know. Deep down, they know. They spent years training to control chaos. You became chaos and made it obey. And from that moment forward, nothing and no one will ever be able to teach you anything you didn't already bleed for. And you can see it in their eyes when they meet you now. That flicker of confusion that slips into unease. They can't quite place it, can they? They look at you and feel something ancient, something ungovernable, like standing too close to a live wire humming under the floorboards. Because you're not performing confidence. You are it. Not the loud, performative kind that shakes hands and gives speeches. The quiet, nuclear kind. The kind that makes entire rooms adjust their tone without knowing why. They sense it before you speak. That vibration. The frequency of someone who no longer plays by fabricated hierarchies. Someone who burned in every possible way and came back without flinching. That's why they stare too long, why they hesitate before talking, why their smiles twitch around the edges. They're staring at the impossible. They spent years constructing command structures, behavioral hierarchies, emotional thresholds, all built to control, to predict, to contain. But you shattered containment the day you stopped fearing collapse. You saw the architecture of fear itself and realized it was hollow. That's the secret no training camp, no government lab, no monastery tells you. Once you stop fearing the fall, gravity itself obeys you. They don't understand how you walk so calm through disaster, how your eyes stay focused while everyone else scrambles. They call it numbness, because they can't imagine peace that doesn't come from avoidance. But your peace isn't numbness, it's dominion. You've seen too much to be fooled by surface noise anymore. You move like a ghost that remembers being alive. You talk like a storm that learned grammar. You didn't seek enlightenment. It ambushed you in the dark. In the sleepless nights where your own thoughts turned on you like wolves. And instead of running, you fed them. You fed the madness until it bowed its head and called you master. That's how you found control, not by suppressing chaos, but by digesting it. You swallowed the storm whole, and now it answers when you whisper. That's why you scare them, because you embody the thing they warn their soldiers about. Total unpredictability wrapped in composure. They run on programming. You run on instinct that can't be coded. They operate by orders. You operate by pulse. They wait for permission. You move. And that movement? It's not random. It's not rebellion. It's nature correcting itself through you. They'll call you dangerous because they can't own you. They'll call you unstable because you won't conform. But you've seen behind the curtain. You know what stability really is. A leash with nicer language. You let it go. You let it all burn until nothing false survived. And what's left now is something raw, something precise, something terrifyingly free. You're not human in the way they define it anymore. You're something older, like instinct rediscovered itself through flesh. You became what the ancients meant when they said awakened, not spiritual, not enlightened. Weaponized awareness. You see too clearly. You read micro-expressions, tones, tremors. You track truth through body language like a predator tracks scent. And they hate that, because you can't be lied to anymore. They call it intuition. You call it pattern recognition, born from pain. You know how people move when they're about to betray you. You know how silence sounds when it's loaded. You can smell tension before it breaks. You didn't learn that in a dojo. You learned it in rooms where trust was currency and you were robbed blind. That's why you walk like that now. That's why your shoulders don't flinch. That's why your gaze stays steady. Because you've already lived every possible ambush. Nothing surprises you anymore. Not because you're numb, but because you're awake. They spent years trying to simulate awareness like that. They used neurofeedback, cold immersion, fasting, deprivation, trying to manufacture what you became organically. But there's no formula for a soul that survived itself. You can't hack awakening. You can't inject it. You can't rehearse it. It's earned in the collapse. You carry that collapse in your bones now, and they feel it. You walk into rooms, and every fake alpha recalibrates. The air shifts. Because dominance doesn't need to shout. It just needs to exist. You radiate inevitability. You are inevitability. And they'll test you. Oh, they'll always test you. They'll try to provoke the old version, the one that still explained itself. They'll push to see if you'll snap, but you don't. You just smile. Because the old you would have fought for control. And the new you is control. That's what evolution looks like. Not rage, but indifference. The kind that unnerves bullies and terrifies cowards. You know who you are now. And that's lethal knowledge. Because once identity becomes anchored in truth, no illusion can manipulate it. You don't need validation, reputation, or recognition. You've tasted solitude, and it didn't kill you. It crowned you. That's why their authority doesn't affect you anymore. You've seen the emptiness beneath the medals, the fragility behind the suits, the insecurity under the smiles. You know they're all still pretending, chasing external control because they lost internal command. You didn't lose it. You built it in silence. You became what they were all pretending to be. Disciplined without needing a uniform, focused without needing a mission, powerful without needing permission. They were trained to follow. You were chosen to lead yourself. And here's the irony. They'll never stop studying you. Not because they want to understand, but because they want to replicate. They'll build theories, algorithms, doctrines, trying to imitate the state you live in naturally. But they'll never get it, because what they're trying to copy is authenticity born from annihilation. You are what happens when someone dies before dying, and comes back with no illusions left to lose. You're not living life anymore. You're executing destiny. You are the proof that chaos isn't the opposite of order. It's the source of it. They trained for years to find this equilibrium. You fell into it and discovered the laws that govern both war and peace. That's the final punchline, isn't it? They built entire systems to simulate what only collapse can create. You became their end goal by mistake. But maybe it wasn't a mistake at all. Maybe the universe used chaos as your training ground. Maybe destruction was the curriculum. Maybe madness was the instructor. And when class was over, you didn't graduate. You ascended. Now every breath you take bends probability. Every glance alters outcomes. Every silence rewrites dynamics. You are no longer a person trying to survive a world. You are a world forcing everything else to survive you. They trained for decades to reach this level of focus, and you reached it by breaking. You didn't stumble into power. Power stumbled into you. And the universe hasn't stopped watching since.